So judgment in Jacob Zuma's medical parole case has been reserved. Last year, December, the High Court in Pretoria declared his medical parole unlawful. Well, the former president and the Department of Correctional Services challenging that today in the Supreme Court of Appeals in Bloemfontein. eNCA senior reporter Aviwe Mtila spent the day in court and much of the evening. He joins me now. So Aviwe, quite a long day in court. If you look back at it, for you, what were the central points that were made?
Well, Sally, of course, it is around whether Arthur Fraser made the right decision when he was still the Correctional Services Commissioner in granting the medical parole to former President Jacob Zuma. We do understand that just after he handed himself over back in July 2021, it was 2 months when he fell ill, was hospitalized, and then after that, he was granted medical parole. That was a bone of contention that led to the Democratic Alliance, the Helen Suzman Foundation, as well as AfriForum running to the courts. And of course, we heard in December the High Court ruling that that decision to grant the former president the medical parole was irrational and illegal. Hence, now we're at the Supreme Court of Appeal today. The bone of contention really was around who has the authority, for example, to even do those medical examinations. We do know that there were 2 doctors that conducted inspections and just looked at the president's well-being. They determined that he was terminally ill with comorbidities and in fact said that he should be granted medical parole. But the other side of the coin is that also the Medical Parole Advisory Board denied the president on its advice that he shouldn't be granted parole, saying that he's fit enough to serve the remaining 13 months. But we do know Arthur Fraser then took that decision, ignored that advice and seeked that other decision. Hence, then today, that was really the crux of the matter. But the other surprising thing, Sally, was when Advocate Dalimpofu, representing former President Jacob Zuma, took to the stand. He made it clear that upon that 2 months when he was in hospital, it was clear that the former president was ill, and the head of the prison said that the former president needed 24-hour care, and the correctional facilities in South Africa, all around the country, can't take care of him, saying that he should then be granted that medical parole.
All right. So judgment has been reserved. Do we know when a decision is coming out?
Not as yet. The justices today will still now have to apply their mind, and then they'll give that judgment. Of course, it will be a bit of a wait. You can almost see that the former president will be anticipating, because this will determine whether he still granted that medical parole. That decision that was taken in December last year, will it be overturned, or will then this mean he has to spend the remaining 13 months of that sentence that he didn't finish back in prison? So it will be a bit of an anticipated wait for many people right around the country, given that there are many factors that were even mentioned inside court, his age being one of those, his health, the reason that he needs 24-hour care being some of the things that have been highlighted here, and also that issue of him being terminally ill, even though it wasn't mentioned explicitly what he's ill with, basically. Another bone of contention that the justices wanted to know what's wrong in order for them to determine that Arthur Fraser made the right decision in granting former President Jacob Zuma medical parole.
Yeah, it's interesting speaking to Professor Kathy Powell, and she was saying basically the only issue that the medical board took into consideration was whether care could be provided. And they had all the reports, even those reports that suggested there couldn't be care. And they made an assessment based on all the reports. In her view, she reckons that the appeal is not going to be granted. Of course, we'll have to wait to see what the courts say. But if she's right, then I suppose the next question is, what happens to the medical parole that he served? Because strictly speaking, is it the former president's fault that an incorrect decision has been made? Should he be penalised and have to go back to prison to serve all of that? Because as it stands now, with the clock ticking, he's due to finish even his medical parole, I think, by October this year, isn't he?
That was one of the arguments made here by Advocate Dalimpofu, saying that it was not his fault that he was granted medical parole. It's not like he applied himself. saying that he needs a medical parole. It is something that the state did on itself, so he shouldn't be punished. You remember even the December ruling suggested that the time that he had already served in that medical parole won't be factored in. So it's another bone of contention, Sally. It will be, I understand you're supposed to serve 10 months outside, mentioning how he's supposed to finish in October, for example, that medical parole. Advocate Dalimpofu mentioning that he is already being under strict monitoring, for example, serving those strict regulations that come with that medical parole. What will happen then now going forward, given that he's served the majority of that medical parole? Does he now start afresh if the judgment works against him and that appeal is denied, seeing him then go into prison at the escort correctional facilities for another 13 months?
Oh my word. Thank you so much for wrapping it up for us. And of course, we'll have to hear from the Supreme Court of Appeal. That is our reporter in Bloemfontein, senior reporter Aviwe Mtila.